back to Young and Wifed Up. This is Marcella.
And I'm Gabby.
And thanks for joining us this week for another episode.
Before we get into today's topic, I would like to talk to you guys quickly about Earth Hero. Earth Hero is your one-stop shop for all your sustainable household and cleaning. Why are you laughing? Cleaning needs.
Sorry.
I'm trying to talk slow so I don't stumble my words, and now Marcella is making fun of me. I just
We've had a few dud takes tonight.
Yeah. Well, this one is staying. Sorry, Marcella. So I'm going to keep talking about Earth Hero.
That's fine.
So on Earth Hero, I get tons of my hygiene products, beauty products, cleaning products. I've said products 3 times now. So you get the gist. We have a 10% off coupon if you use Young and Wifed Up at your checkout. Click the link in our website. We love Earth Hero for all of your sustainable, zero waste products. Once again, products. Okay, today's topic, we're going to be talking about preparing our homes for the Sabbath, how we do that practically. So really quick before I get into our practical stuff, I wanted to talk to you guys about what our goal is today. So our goal today is not to convince you of our particular convictions of the Sabbath day. I'm going to link some resources, however, from 2 different sources. One is the Gentle Reformation blog about the Sabbath, and Marcella's pastor, Reverend Richard Barcelos, who's been doing a series on the Sabbath day. If you're interested to know what we believe about the Sabbath day, why we believe it's instituted by God from creation, why we believe it's changed from Saturday to Sunday, why we avoid certain activities, and why we positively do certain activities on that day, I highly recommend these resources to get all into the nitty-gritty of why and all that stuff. So, but today's goal is more about talking about how we practically do this. I wish that there was something like this for me to hear, especially when I first started practice Sabbath keeping. Wow, some people say Sabbath keeping.
That's funny. Sabbathing.
Because I felt a little bit like lost, and I wish there was more practical, like how other people do. It would have been really helpful for me. So this has like been very developed over the years for me because I've been a Sabbatarian for 4.5 years, maybe 5 years. And it has been a lot of trial and error, and I do think like that these things that we're going to talk about practically have been the best to help us to make this day a delight. So today we're going to talk about how we prepare our homes for the Sabbath to make the day a delight. The Sabbath day is a day of joy, celebration, spiritual nourishment, and rest. And before we get into the practical, I just want to quickly read one of my favorite passages of scripture regarding the Sabbath day, and that's from Isaiah 58:13-14. And it says, "If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words, then you shall delight yourselves in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the high hills of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. The mouth of the Lord has spoken." Oh, I get like chills every time I read that passage. It's so good. And truly, we do believe like that the Sabbath should be not a day of dread. And for me, in the beginning of this journey, it was definitely a day of dread for me. And now it truly has become a day of delight. So how do we prepare? So we prepare for the Sabbath day before the Sabbath comes. And this has been a long tradition since the Hebrews that they prepared the day before the Sabbath day. Now, I recommend you don't plan everything the day before, but some people call Saturday like preparation day. You know, it's a day you're meditating on the Lord, you're getting your heart right for worship, you know, that sort of thing, which I think is good. But also for my sanity, I do have to consider Sunday on Monday, like the whole week before. So anyway, I've broken it up into 4 different categories of how we prepare, and then we can kind of tell you guys what we do. The first one is food and fellowship. So Marcel, what do you do in these categories to prepare?
So I have 3 boys in my house, which means they eat a lot of food. I eat a lot of food too. So they're to make things easier on Sunday mornings, like the last thing you want is to be driving to church stressed out, either because you didn't eat a good meal or because you were trying to make a good meal and it took too long, and now you're rushing, and like you and your husband are fighting because you're like trying to get in the car on time. Anyway, just a big mess.
Are you speaking from experience?
Yes, I am. So usually as far as like the food stuff goes, if we are like bringing something for Sabbath dinner, which we typically have at Gabby and Ryan's place on Sunday evenings, we try to make sure we have that stuff. Usually I just include it in my grocery shopping for the week, and I never do grocery shopping on Sunday morning. So I'm doing it during the week, and, you know, as long as I can, you know, get it in, usually around Saturday evening is like the cutoff time that we need to have this food.
Sometimes there's a panic shop on Sunday night.
Yeah. On Saturday night, yeah.
Which a lot of our friends can relate to. Like, they're like, oh, we're going to Trader Joe's. It's 9 p.m.
Gotta get the stuff. Yeah. Stuff for Saturday or for Sunday. So,
your church also does potlucks every Sunday too.
Yeah, and so sometimes we'll bring stuff for that. It kind of like rotates between people on who's available to bring what. So I would say, like, with the food things, with younger kids, if you feel like you're crunched for time, it doesn't need to be this like fancy homemade thing like every time. Like, sometimes it just needs to be something that's going to feed the people.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. And so, don't feel like you have to like go all out with this like extravagant like gourmet dish.
Yeah. In fact, I actually tend to do the opposite.
Yeah, the most simple.
I do the simple, what will require the least amount of prep work and the least amount of dishes. And that's what I was going to kind of tag in here. So because we have fellowship at our house on Sunday evenings, most evenings, sometimes I get a little respite and you will host or one of the other girls will host. But we do paper goods.
Yes.
And plastic.
Yes,
Paper and plastic. I know, all the crunchy people and the zero waste people just cancel me already. But yes, we do paper and plastic. We do napkins, which I'm so anti-napkin. But I tried doing zero waste hosting. It is not for me, honey. No, thank you.
Yeah.
We get the paper, we get the plastic, and it's so much easier. We try to do the least amount of dishes. Having a fellowship meal is the best for most of our meals, is the best way that we can take a burden off of one another. Usually we only have to contribute one or two things instead of worrying about a whole meal.
Yeah.
And
potluck style is always the way to go.
Always the way to go. And you can make it fun. Like, we do themes typically. Sometimes it's a hodgepodge, but mostly we'll do themes. Last week we did meatball sandwiches, and then we did sides with that. This weekend we're doing chili. So it's just kind of, we rotate. Sometimes we'll do Mexican and Chinese day, and we've done breakfast for dinner, which was arguably one of my favorite ones that we've done.
You're welcome.
It was so fun. It was your idea. Thank you, Marcel. And also it's fun to like have it at other people's houses too, because then we can kind of get like see how they host, and it's good practice for everybody to practice hospitality. It ends up happening at our house most of the times because we don't have kids. We have a little bit more flexibility in our lives, and even though our apartment is small, like, we cram the people in here, and
somehow
I never say no if somebody asks for a place to go. So I'm like, even if we're like, sometimes it's like a bread, like a loaves and fishes moment. And like last weekend, I was genuinely concerned because I had only planned to feed like 12 people, and then we had visitors at our church, and these two men wanted to come over for dinner. Yeah. And I was like, they're coming, and the Lord's going to have to provide. And nobody went to the store to panic shop the day of the Sabbath. And so the Lord provided, and we had leftovers. It just, I don't know how it happened, but the Lord provided, and He always does. We always have enough food, even when we're panicking and thinking we don't.
Yeah,
the Lord always,
there's always a way. Some random frozen bag of corn.
Yeah.
It's always the frozen bags of corn.
Yeah, and so one of the things that helps me to make sure that we always have food is, yes, the frozen veggies. I always have a box of pasta in my pantry for Sabbath if we need to pull it out, and I always have a loaf of bread, the take and bake breads, which I get mine from Imperfect Foods, but I think you could buy them at most grocery stores. Everywhere. So they're vacuum sealed like loaves, so they stay in your fridge for a very long time. And so I always have one in my fridge, and whenever we need it, I'll bake it, and it's just another loaf of bread to keep people fed.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to say about the food and fellowship is that we do send out like texts. I try to do it at least by Thursday. That way people know ahead of time like what to bring and
for the
who's
potluck
invited,
situation.
like who we estimate who we're feeding. So, and that's been the best thing. We recently started using the Meal Train app. They have a potluck section, which is like
really good.
so fun. I'm going to link that in the Patreon. It is such a great way to host a meal. Because usually most people use Meal Train for like taking care of other people when they're sick or postpartum and stuff like that. But in this circumstance, they have a potluck section of their website where you can just coordinate a meal with everybody, and it's very mobile friendly, easily accessible to everybody. It'll send you an email reminder, hey, you have to provide this part of the meal. And anyway, it's really cool. So yeah, we try to make sure that we have fellowship. The Lord's Day is way more of a delight when we're not stuck in our house by ourselves, and we try to gather with God's people as much as possible on Lord's Day. And there are days where we do need rest, and that's where I get out the macaroni and cheese from the cupboard and, or the Trader Joe's orange chicken from the freezer, and we make sure that we have, or sometimes we've done like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, on Sunday nights when it was just Ryan and I. And so if there is a day that we don't have a fellowship meal, I always make sure that we have a simple meal on hand that, again, will not take a lot of prep work and will kind of be less on the dishes.
Yeah.
Okay, what about cleaning and home management, homemaking stuff?
I need to go back to food for a second.
Okay, wait, what?
Okay, so what I've been doing on Sundays, because when you have kids, trying to feed them and get out of the door on time, you need something that you don't necessarily have to cook, because then you don't want to deal with the dishes later on either. So what we've been doing is making breakfast sandwiches, sausage, egg, biscuit, breakfast sandwiches. So I'll make biscuits the night before, and we just get you can make your own sausages if you want to do all of it by scratch. Yeah. We just get the Jimmy Dean's.
No
the little breakfast sausage patties, and then we make we bake eggs in a baking dish, many at once, and then we cut them into squares, and then we assemble. Jed and I both do on Saturday nights. He's willing to help me, and I'm more than thankful that he does, because it is kind of a lot of work. We assemble all the sandwiches, we wrap them in foil, we throw them in the fridge. And then all Jed has to do, because usually I want to get ready a little bit more on Sundays. Usually during the week, I don't wear a lot of makeup. I don't do a whole lot with my hair. And so Sundays, I want to get dolled up a little bit more, which takes a little bit more time, obviously. And so all he has to do is throw the sandwiches in the oven and turn it on.
Yeah.
And that's it. And with the kids, it's not messy. Biscuits and it's not like you're feeding them yogurt.
Yeah.
Where it's going to take an hour to clean
up. They can eat it in the car and stuff.
Yeah. And then I can even eat in the car too, on the way to church. And Jed also makes us iced coffees the night before so that we can just pull them out of the fridge and go.
Bless. And you're a pro now.
He makes really good iced coffees.
Yeah.
So
that's a great tip, dude.
Very helpful.
Okay, cleaning and home management. Do you do any cleaning on the Sabbath?
Only by necessity, if somebody had a blowout in laundry.
That's an act of necessity and mercy.
for everybody in the house. So
if somebody has a blowout, you have to do a load of laundry.
A quick load of laundry needs to happen. I'll probably wash a few dishes when we get home from church, but it doesn't pile up. So we try to have the kitchen. I close the kitchen down on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. There's nothing out unless it's stuff that's gonna contribute to the next morning's meal or something. Then I'll keep that stuff out. But I try to make sure that I don't have the dishwasher's empty. I don't have dishes drying on the dish rack. All that stuff is put away, so I can do minimal things with that sort of stuff. So I maybe do 5 to 10 dishes.
Yeah.
On Sunday, but I'm not scrubbing toilets or
right. No, and part of why I really like doing the fly lane method, which I talked about last month, is that my house is always kind of baseline cleaned.
Right.
So that when Sunday comes, I'm not panicking. Like, I don't have to scrub things, and it's not like a disaster when people come over. And then also, even if people don't come over, like, if you're having a restful Sunday, like, it's not very restful if your house is in shambles. It just feels like, for me at least, the anxiety I really can't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Sunday, the only cleaning I do is, like you said, out of necessity. We do cook still all of our meals on Sunday, so that comes with dishes.
Thankfully, we have fellowship meal lunch every week at our church, so we
That's
just
nice.
go home and we've already been fed.
That's really nice.
It is really, really nice.
Yeah. Sunday nights when we have to close the kitchen after fellowshipping, thankfully, it's usually all hands on deck. Whoever's left over at the house, we all just get up and we clean it, and we're having good conversations, edifying conversations. It doesn't land all on one person. And usually, like, Jasenia, shout out to you because I know you're listening, but she is my star because she helps me with the dishes every Sunday night, and she'll like, okay, Zach, go get my gloves, and then he'll bring the gloves and she'll do the dishes for me, and then I can just focus on making sure all the food's put away and the counters are cleaned, and I can mop the floor really quick because it's usually totally disgusting afterwards.
All the toddlers dropping all their food
and
all
usually
over the
that's
floor.
like, and then usually like our husbands will clean up the living room and the toys, you know, from the disaster that the kids make. And you know what, like, sometimes that's like the most precious conversations I have with her is when her and I are cleaning up after the Lord's Day, and I really value that. So thank you, Jessie, for your work, and I so appreciate it. And I try to do that too when other women are hosting, like when you're hosting, or
you guys,
you know, we're all hands on deck. You know, everybody helps
so much faster that way too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what we do with the cleaning and home managing. All the other stuff is for the other 6 days in the week.
Yes.
Okay, kids, I want you to talk about this really quick. You kind of talked about how you kind of prep meals for the kids. Is there anything else, like toys or like anything that you kind of prepare or try to do differently?
I mean, I don't know if it's really differently, just kind of the basics, like double check Saturday night to make sure the diaper bag has everything you need, so that you're not having to pack it the morning of. Like, the least work you can do before church, trying to get the kids out the door, the better.
Yes.
Even if it's like, oh, it'll take me like 2 seconds to pack the diaper bag. Still do it the day before, because you just never know if something's going to go wrong, or something might end up taking longer than you thought. Yeah, so just making sure that they have extra clothes, that there's diapers and wipes in there. Usually, as far as like toys and stuff goes, like, we'll pack a few, like, quiet toys for both of the boys, making sure that, like, their water bottles are filled up. And sometimes we'll pack a little snack in there, because sometimes, I don't know, it's just, food usually cures a lot of things.
Word.
Yeah, and then usually when we're at church, we have 2 services, so during first service, Eli takes a nap. So I'll take him outside in the stroller. I'll get him to sleep within like 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll come back in. So, like, making sure I have like my little sound machine and like a blanket to put over the stroller, so that he can get a nap and not be like super crankster.
Yeah.
Because he's very cranky when he's tired. I'm trying to think what else. I have heard, I put this on our notes. I have heard of sometimes people practice the hymns that they're going to sing on Sundays. That's cool. Like our pastor does post, I think on his Twitter maybe, or I don't know if he does it on his Facebook. He posts what hymn numbers we're going to be doing out of the hymnals. So that's nice. So then the people can look it up and kind of like familiarize themselves with what we're going to be singing. And I don't do that personally, just because Seth is my oldest and he's not even 3.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he's not at the point right now, like with his speech, where he can like memorize really lengthy hymns. But if you have
sings the doxology, though.
He does. He makes up his own words.
Yeah.
But he knows when he's singing the doxology.
Yes.
As opposed to singing
the threefold Amen.
He does the threefold Amen.
It's very so cute. Precious. I love it.
But if you have older kids, that might be a good idea if your
To prepare
church does
them.
more hymns and stuff like that, you know, to kind of play things with them and to practice your singing. And it's just a fun time. I'm sure, as well.
No, that also would go along with spiritual preparation.
Yeah.
We do, Ryan and I, for family worship, which we have an episode on, I can link it. For family worship on Saturday nights, we will read the passage that our pastor is going to be preaching on the next day. And that kind of, especially because like our pastors do like through the books of the Bible usually, or like your pastor's going through the law. So you kind of know what to expect next. Because they don't do like topical, like every week it's different.
This is really only helpful if your pastor is actually telling you what he's gonna.
So since we know, we do read the passage of scripture beforehand, and that does kind of help us prepare our hearts. And then also, if we know that we're taking communion, the Lord's Supper, that Sunday, I personally, for myself, I make sure that I'm spiritually preparing myself for that, because we do take it very seriously. And so I do like more meditate on like Christ's death and sacrifice when I know that we're going to be taking the Lord's Supper, because I know your guys' does it weekly, but ours does it bi-monthly, and so like every other month, or I don't know if that's every bi-monthly. Every other month we do it.
Oh, every other month?
Yeah.
Not even once a month?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting. Like it's kind of different wherever you go in Reformed churches. Yeah. So like I don't know. I would prefer it to be once a month, and I think at one point we were
doing once a month?
I don't even remember, but right now we're doing it every other month, and it's still like a huge blessing, and we do a big meal, and it's like tomorrow on this Sunday, like
today?
The day that we're recording right now, which is like the end of September, in the first weekend of October, we're actually taking the Lord's Supper, so I'm very excited for that. So yeah, so that means tomorrow, Saturday, I will be preparing my heart for the Lord's Supper. So that's kind of like the spiritual preparation. But anyway, I hope this gave you guys some like practical tips if you are new to Sabbath keeping, or if you're already a Sabbath keeper and you just kind of like need some encouragement, like, girl, we're with you, honey. Like,
the prep is work.
Yes, it's work, but to make the Sabbath a delight and a restful day, it really is worth all of the work.
I do have another note.
What's your note?
I know I keep talking about kids, but I have kids, so
whatever.
Nothing else is relevant in my life right now. For moms with young children, I hear a lot from women that they are very discouraged because Sabbath for them is probably more work than the rest of the week with the kids. I completely understand. And it's not necessarily like the point of the Sabbath is not so that we can lay around all day. Like that isn't the point of it. And the resources that you put up will definitely speak more to that. But I just want to encourage you, like the spiritual rest aspect of it comes with probably a lot of like physical work and labor with like wrangling the kids, going to church. You're going to be out of your routine. You may have kids skipping naps, and so they're like, you know, on another level. And so just don't be discouraged. Keep going. Don't let that be a reason to stop going to church on Sundays or to not fellowship with people on a regular basis. I can understand sometimes like you need a Sunday to after church to kind of be at home. Like we have those weeks. Yes, we definitely have those weeks. But don't make it a habit to isolate yourselves because you know that it's just going to be easier to be at home. Like let yourself be blessed
totally
by going to church. And sometimes the only part of the sermon that I hear is like the first 10 minutes, and I sing a couple of hymns, and that's all I get from the service. But still, even that small snippet of time is a means of grace to me on Sunday. Don't feel like you have to be there and sit through the whole thing in order to get anything out of it, because that's just not true. So I just want to throw that in there.
No, and if you are, and the seasons of life will change so much. Like, like there's a season where you have a bunch of infants and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And then I've seen people that have teenagers. Like there's this one family that it really was an encouragement to me with hospitality on the Lord's Day. And they have now almost all teenagers. And just the teenagers want to be a part of our conversations. They're sitting at the table with us. So all that work was just like, so the fruit of it is like the kids believe the Sabbath is a delight. They're involving themselves in adult conversations about the things of God. It is just like, wowza, like that is an encouragement to me. And I know that that mother had a season where all those kids were all under 5 years old. And and I'm sure it felt like, how am I ever going to get out of this? But the Lord still blesses all of those efforts. 100%. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we encouraged you today and gave you some practical ideas, and I hope we can see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.